Welcome back to the Orange Ball. It is Friday, February 20th, 2026, and we are jumping right into our daily deep dive.
Oh man, we have so much to cover today. The league is just upside down right now.
It really is. I mean, the NBA returned from the All-Star break last night, and I think the only word to describe the slate we just watched is absolute chaos.
Pure chaos.
Yeah. Usually, we get a little bit of a ramp-up period, right? A little, let's get the legs back under us phase
Yeah.
after the break.
Right, right. Guys are rusty.
Exactly. We got absolutely none of that. We were thrown straight into the fire.
It was a beautiful mess. That is honestly the only way to put it. We had everything you could possibly want as a basketball fan, and, well, some things you definitely didn't want to see if you happen to be a fan of certain franchises.
Yeah, we have a massive agenda for this deep dive. Let me just set the table for everyone listening. We've got a buzzer beater situation, or I guess a lack of a buzzer beater in the new Intuit Dome. We had an absolute coronation of a superstar at Madison Square Garden.
Mm-hmm. Incredible game.
And then we had a franchise hitting a historic, just devastating rock bottom in Sacramento.
The popcorn game. We have to talk about the popcorn.
We will definitely get to the popcorn incident.
Yeah.
It is a lot to process, but we're going to start by diving deep into that Clippers and Nuggets thriller. We need to figure out if the Clippers actually won the trade deadline, now that we have a real sample size to look at.
Which is crazy to think about, given the narrative 2 weeks ago.
Right. And then we're going to break down Cade Cunningham destroying the Knicks again, and whether that performance at the Garden signals a real changing of the guard in the East. Plus, we have to talk about the Spurs, who are suddenly just terrifying everyone in the Western Conference.
And we can't forget the officiating controversy in LA regarding the take foul rules. There is a lot of confusion out there that we need to clear up for you guys.
Absolutely. So let's bounce.
Let's do it.
Okay, we have to start with the game of the night. Los Angeles Clippers 115, Denver Nuggets 114. This was the first time the Clippers saw the Nuggets since that absolute blockbuster trade that sent James Harden and Ivica Zubac out of town.
Yeah, and if you rewind to when that trade happened, the national narrative was so definitively clear. Everyone, thought the Clippers were waving the white flag.
Right, they were pivoting to a rebuild.
Exactly. They were clearing the decks, getting ready for the lottery.
But here we are, and they are now 4-1 since that trade. And last night, playing in the Intuit Dome, it wasn't Kawhi Leonard carrying the entire load, it was the new guy.
The new guy, Benedict Mathurin.
And for those who might not have heard his name called much during his Indiana days, it's pronounced Benedict Mathurin. And he was just electric.
Electric is an understatement.
I mean,
let's go into the lab on this performance. 38 points is a massive headline number, obviously. It ties his career high.
Off the bench, too.
Off the bench. +4 in the plus-minus. But when you look at the tape from last night, this just did not look like the Clippers offense we have been watching for the last 3 years.
Not at all. It wasn't that methodical, pound the rock, slow it down style.
It is a completely different ecosystem now. For years, the Clippers played Harden ball. And I want to be clear, that is not a criticism. It is just a stylistic fact.
Right, it's a specific brand of basketball.
Exactly. Harden ball is entirely about control. It's a slow pace, isolation at the top of the key, hunting for the exact mismatch you want, and then surgically dissecting the defense.
But last night.
What we saw last night against Denver was pure, unadulterated, downhill aggression. Mathurin isn't waiting for the mismatch to develop. He is creating the mismatch with pure velocity.
And I think that's the biggest takeaway for the listeners here. The Clippers essentially traded control for chaos.
Chaos, yes, and chaos is so much harder for a defense to scout. If you pull up the shot chart from last night, you'll see Mathurin took 22 shots from the field.
Wow, 22.
Yeah, and out of those 22, only 4 of them were outside the paint or the immediate short mid-range. He was living in what we call the teeth of the defense. Ty Lue ran these incredibly quick dribble handoff actions.
DHOs.
Right, the DHOs. He ran them specifically to get Mathurin moving toward the basket before he even caught the ball.
Let's break that down a bit for the listener who hears the term DHO but might not fully visualize the geometry of why it's so effective. How does that change the spacing on the floor compared to a traditional isolation play?
Sure, it's a great question. So imagine Brook Lopez, who was the other major piece acquired in that trade, standing at the elbow holding the basketball.
Okay, so he's at the corner of the free throw line.
Right. In the old system, James Harden would stand at the top of the key, dribble the air out of the ball, call for a screen, and wait. In this new system, Mathurin starts way down in the corner. He sprints full speed past Lopez, takes the handoff right as he goes by, and uses Lopez's massive frame as a shield.
So he's already got a full head of steam.
Exactly. By the time the Denver defender manages to navigate around Brook Lopez, Mathurin is already at max speed, heading directly toward Nikola Jokic in the paint. And we know Jokic.
Right.
For all his offensive brilliance, he really struggles when hyper-athletic guards challenge him vertically at the rim.
Which perfectly explains the free throw disparity last night. Mathurin took 13 free throws and made 12 of them. In the Harden era, a lot of those Clipper free throws came from baiting fouls, right?
Yeah.
Hooking arms, stopping short on screens, all that crafty stuff.
The dark arts.
Yeah, the dark arts. But Mathurin's free throws last night looked entirely different.
Because they came from force. It is the fundamental difference between craft and force. Mathurin was initiating physical collisions with the Denver defense. He wasn't looking for the whistle. He was looking to put someone in the rim, and the whistle was just a byproduct of the Nuggets being totally unable to stop his momentum.
That's a great way to put it.
And in a game where the Clippers shot 24% from three-point range,
Which is usually a guaranteed loss.
a total death sentence in the modern NBA, that downhill force was the only thing keeping them alive. He generated something crazy like 1.7 points per possession on his drives. That is an elite, top-tier superstar number.
I do want to push back on this slightly just for the sake of the sample size we have. 24% from three, that's 8 of 33 as a team. Is this rim pressure style actually sustainable long-term if you aren't hitting the outside shots? Because Denver eventually packed the paint in the fourth quarter, and Mathurin just kept driving into traffic.
But see, that is the beauty of a player with his burst. When you have a guy who can turn the corner that fast, the defense absolutely has to collapse. They have no choice. So even if your teammates aren't hitting the kick-out threes today, you are still generating wide-open looks.
Kawhi Leonard was 8 of 18, so he didn't exactly have his most efficient night either.
Right. But that is exactly why Mathurin's performance matters so much for the ceiling of this team. When the jump shots aren't falling, you desperately need someone who can put their head down, get into the paint, and draw contact to stop the clock. Harden used to do that with craft, but Mathurin does it with this explosive athleticism that the Clippers really haven't had since, honestly, maybe since a young Blake Griffin.
That is a massive comparison. But it wasn't just his offense last night, though. You noted before we started recording that he had some incredibly critical defensive plays. Because the knock on Mathurin when he was coming out of Indiana was always his defensive consistency.
Yeah, he always had the physical tools, but he would just get lost playing off ball. Last night, he was completely locked in. He's embracing that nickname, the wall. He had 2 huge steals.
The ones in the third quarter.
Yes. There was that sequence where the Nuggets were really threatening to pull away. They had a 10-point lead. Jokic and Jamal Murray were cooking, and Mathurin gets 2 back-to-back steals that spark a 14-3 Clippers run to close the quarter. He is fitting into Ty Lue's system perfectly because he's playing with that real dog mentality. He fought over screens. He absolutely refused to die on the pick-and-roll coverage.
Speaking of that dog mentality, let's talk about the final sequence of this game because it was pure, unadulterated cinema. And it involved the other new guy.
Absolute chaos. Just great television.
So set the scene for the listeners. Final possession of the game. Nuggets have the ball, down by 1. Nikola Jokic has the rock. He is the reigning MVP. He is supposed to be unstoppable in these moments. And then Brook Lopez happens.
This is the other half of that trade that everyone completely slept on. Brook Lopez. We know he is older. We know he is not the 20-point scorer he used to be in Brooklyn, but his rim protection is still absolutely elite. On that final defensive possession, he completely stifled Jokic.
Walk us through the tactical setup there. Why was Jokic isolated on Lopez at the top of the key? Usually Denver tries to get Jokic moving, or they run a 2-man game with Murray.
Well, it was a breakdown by Denver, but forced by a phenomenal adjustment by the Clippers. Denver tried to run a Spain pick and roll.
For those listening, that's where you have a screener set a pick, and then a third player sets a screen on that first screener's defender.
Exactly. It's designed to cause total confusion in the paint. But the Clippers just switched everything, and this is where their post-trade roster really shines. They have so much switchable length now with Derrick Jones Jr., Kawhi, and Mathurin. They switched the Spain action, completely denied the entry pass to Jamal Murray, and forced the ball back out to Jokic at the top of the key with the shot clock winding down. He had no choice but to drive.
And Brook Lopez was waiting.
And Brook Lopez is the absolute master of drop coverage.
Essentially backing up toward the rim to protect the paint, staying between the ball handler and the basket.
Right. Lopez did not bite on the pump fake. He didn't reach in and risk a foul. He just stayed perfectly vertical. He used that massive wingspan to swallow the shot attempt. It was a clinic in verticality rule defense. He blocks the shot, forces a loose ball situation, and basically saves the game right there at the rim.
But it wasn't over.
Yeah.
Because then we had the foul. The ball gets kicked out, and Jamal Murray gets fouled on a desperation three-point attempt with just seconds left. Clippers are up by 3 at this point.
I can literally hear the collective groan of Clipper Nation just recounting this sequence. It was Derrick Jones Jr. on the closeout.
Was it a bad foul or just an unfortunate basketball play?
It was a highly questionable decision to challenge that closely, honestly. You are up 3 points. You absolutely do not want to bail them out in that situation. If Murray makes a wildly contested, fading 30-footer, you tip your cap, grab some water, and go to overtime. But you do not foul a shooter. Jones Jr. got caught in the air, came down on him, so Murray goes to the free throw line. 3 shots to tie the game.
And this is Jamal Murray. Playoff Jamal. The blue arrow. He steps up and makes the first one.
Makes the first one. Nothing but net.
Makes the second one.
And the crowd is dead silent. I mean, you could hear a pin drop in the Intuit Dome.
And then, clang. He misses the third.
Ball don't lie.
The entire arena was chanting it. Ball don't lie. It was deafening. And look, the Nuggets were furious about the officiating all night long. We are going to get to the take foul confusion in a minute because that is a whole separate can of worms. But ultimately, the game was decided because Jamal Murray had it in his hands at the stripe, and he choked the free throw. That is the headline.
It is poetic, really. The Clippers fans chanting, "Ball don't lie," the Nuggets feeling aggrieved by the refs, but the result is the result, 115-114. And I do think you have to give some credit to Derrick Jones Jr., too. Yes, he committed the cardinal sin of fouling a three-point shooter late. But he also had some incredibly clutch defensive moments before that, and he hit key free throws down the stretch himself. He finished with 22 points.
So, taking a step back, what does this all mean for the standings? Because the Clippers were supposed to be packing it in for the season.
They are proving they have incredible depth now. Look at the resume since the deadline. They have beaten the Timberwolves, the Rockets, and now the Nuggets in this really short stretch. They don't have the top-heavy star power of Harden anymore, but they have Kawhi Leonard, and then they have this army of long, athletic wings and a true rim protector in Lopez.
They finally have an identity.
Exactly. They are dogs. And right now, with Mathurin playing at this superstar level, they are a team nobody in the West wants to see on their schedule.
All right, before we leave this game entirely, we have to address the take foul controversy. Because my timeline last night was just exploding with confusion from fans and analysts alike. Explain exactly what happened there.
Okay, so late in the fourth quarter, the Nuggets commit a foul on Mathurin to stop a fast break opportunity. This is the textbook definition of a take foul. It's an intentional foul committed specifically to stop a transition scoring opportunity. Usually the rule for that is 1 free throw, and the team that was fouled gets to keep possession of the ball.
Right. That's the standard penalty we see all the time now.
But the catch here is that the Nuggets were already in the bonus. They had committed more than 5 team fouls in the quarter. So when the whistle blew, there was massive confusion on the floor. The refs ended up giving Mathurin 1 free throw plus possession. But the players, the coaches, everyone in the building was looking around like, wait, shouldn't this be 2 shots because they're in the bonus? Or is it just the 1? Do we get the ball back?
And it matters so much because in a 1-point game, every single point is absolute gold.
It matters immensely. If it is ruled a standard shooting or floor foul because of the bonus, it is 2 shots. If it is strictly a take foul, it is 1 shot and the ball. The math fundamentally changes your late game strategy. It just kills the rhythm of the game. You saw Jamal Murray and Jokic pleading with the refs. You saw Ty Lue at the scorer's table trying to figure out if they had the advantage.
So what was the final ruling?
Ultimately, the refs ruled it as a transition take foul despite the bonus situation, which grants the 1 shot and the ball. But it is one of those frustrating rule book quirks that just completely muddies the water in crunch time.
I feel like we have a rule confusion moment like this once a week now. It feels like we are litigating the rule book more than we are actually watching the game sometimes.
It is the unintended consequence of the league trying to legislate game flow. But for the Clippers, they will gladly take the win however they can get it.
Very true. All right, let's shift gears. We talked about a thriller out in L.A., but we need to talk about an absolute statement performance in New York. Because Cade Cunningham, man, I don't even know what to say. He walked right into Madison Square Garden and just dismantled the Knicks.
Dismantled is a perfect word for it. The Detroit Pistons defeated the New York Knicks 126-111, and Cade Cunningham's stat line is pure MVP caliber.
Read it out for the people listening.
42 points, 8 rebounds, 13 assists, 3 blocks, all of that on 17 of 34 shooting from the floor.
And here is the stat that genuinely blew my mind when I looked at the box score. I had to triple check this. How many free throws did he take?
3. He took 3 free throws.
3. He scored 42 points in an NBA game in the year 2026, taking only 3 free throws. I want to challenge you on something here. We throw around the term masterclass a lot in basketball media. But is a 42-point game on 3 free throws actually more impressive than, say, a 60-point game where a guy shoots 20 free throws?
I strongly believe that it is, and here's exactly why. Free throws stop the clock. They let the offensive player catch their breath. They let the defense reset. What Cade did last night was dissect a fully set half-court defense completely in flow for 48 minutes. He did not rely on the whistle to bail him out of bad possessions. He relied entirely on mid-range mastery.
The lost art.
It really is a lost art. The Knicks were playing a very aggressive shell defense because Detroit was missing their big men. They had no Jalen Duren. They had no Isaiah Stewart. Those are their 2 toughest interior players. They're muscle in the paint.
So the Knicks' game plan was obvious.
Right. The Knicks thought, we will just crowd the paint and force them to shoot over us. Cade countered that strategy by stopping on a dime at 15 feet all night long. He went 8 of 10 from the mid-range area. That is prime Kevin Durant territory. That is prime Chris Paul territory.
And he did this against OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. These are 2 of the premier wing defenders in the entire league. The Knicks traded a fortune for these guys specifically to stop big playmaking wings like Cade Cunningham.
That is the real statement part of this performance. The Knicks have built their entire modern identity on having these elite wing stoppers. Cade treated them like practice cones. He used his size, and you have to remember, he is a massive point guard, 6'6", 220 pounds, to just bump them right off their spots. There was a play in the third quarter where he literally put Mikal Bridges in the jail position.
Putting him in jail. Explain that for the listeners. That's keeping the defender trapped on your back hip.
Exactly. He drove hard to his right, got a half step on Miles, and then decelerated, keeping Bridges trapped on his back hip. When a defender is in jail like that, they cannot contest the shot or the pass without committing a foul over the back. So Cade probes the lane, waits patiently for the Knicks' help defense to commit, and then bang, he throws this gorgeous wraparound pass to Paul Reed for a wide open dunk. It was slow motion dominance. It genuinely looked like he was playing at a different frame rate than everyone else on the floor.
You mentioned Paul Reed, B-ball Paul. He stepped into the starting lineup because of the injuries. The Pistons are now 7-1 when he starts. Is this just a case of a player needing an opportunity, or is he actually a better schematic fit for what Cade wants to do offensively?
It comes down to spacing. Jalen Duren is a traditional rim runner, a lob threat. Reed is pure chaos on the floor, but he can actually pop out to the perimeter a little bit. He creates just enough indecision in the opposing front court. But look, the real story here isn't just Detroit's brilliance, it's the Knicks. This is starting to look like a crisis.
Is it a crisis? Or is it just a really bad shooting night? They shot 8 of 35 from deep.
It is a crisis because of how they missed those shots. They looked incredibly stagnant. The ball was sticking. When Jalen Brunson isn't out there creating absolute miracles off the dribble, they simply do not have a plan B. Detroit exposed that flaw terribly. If you cut off the head of the snake Brunson, the rest of the body just flails around. Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Karl Anthony Towns combined for, I think, 2 of 20 from three-point range.
Ouch. That is brutal.
It's awful. And that poor shooting allows the defense to just completely collapse on Brunson every time he touches the ball. Detroit blatantly dared the Knicks role players to beat them, and they couldn't do it.
I want to push a narrative here. Cade Cunningham, 42 points, 10-plus assists at MSG. The last player to hit those specific numbers at the Garden was LeBron James in 2009.
That is historically elite company.
So is this his MVP moment? The Pistons are sitting at 41-13. That is the best record in the Eastern Conference.
It is certainly his I have arrived moment on the national stage. When you go into the Garden on national television missing your starting center and your enforcer and you dominate a supposed contender like that, yeah, the MVP chatter has to get significantly louder today. He completely controlled the tempo of the game without needing the referees to put him on the line. That, to me, is the true mark of a superstar.
Before we move on, I have to mention the wedgie block.
Oh, man, this was amazing.
Cade goes up to challenge a dunk attempt at the rim, blocks the ball with so much force that it gets wedged perfectly between the rim and the backboard. A literal wedgie block. It just perfectly summed up his entire night. He was doing everything. Offense, defense, bizarre physics experiments.
He was everywhere. Just a flawless game.
Okay, speaking of physics experiments, let's head down to Texas. because the Phoenix Suns probably wish they could just disappear off the face of the earth after what happened to them in Austin last night.
The San Antonio Spurs are terrifyingly good, man. They beat the Suns 121-94.
And this wasn't even in their home arena in San Antonio. This was their Moody Center game up in Austin as part of their whole mega region branding strategy to capture that market.
Right, and the crowd in Austin was absolutely eating it up. But the real story of this game was the defense, specifically the rookie, Stephon Castle.
Son Castle. Pronounced Stephon Castle.
This kid is special. I mean, look, he had 20 points on the offensive end, which is obviously great for a rookie, but his defense on Devin Booker was the true headline of the night.
Booker actually left the game early with hip soreness, right?
He did, but even before he left, Castle was absolutely hounding him. We are talking about picking him up 94 feet from the hoop on every single possession. There was one sequence where Castle chased Booker over 2 different screens, completely denied him the entry pass, and forced a shot clock turnover. He just got under Booker's skin from the opening tip.
That level of perimeter physicality is something the Spurs really haven't had in their backcourt in a long time. They've had good team defenders, obviously, but Castle's a straight-up bully.
It sets the entire defensive tone for the team. Mitch Johnson, the Spurs coach, talked about it in his post-game presser. Castle's point-of-attack physicality allows everyone else on the floor to just stay home on their assignments. And when you know you have Victor Wembanyama standing behind you in the paint, well, that allows Castle to be even more aggressive on the perimeter because he knows he has the ultimate safety net.
Victor Wembanyama, V-I-Cater Wembanyagia. Kaiju mode activated.
Kaiji mode is the perfect description. 17 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 blocks.
There was a dunk he had. I need you to describe this for the listeners because the audio highlights just do not do it justice.
Oh my God, it was unbelievable. He caught the ball outside the restricted area, entirely in traffic. There were 3 different Suns defenders swarming around him. He didn't even take a dribble. He just pivoted, extended that insane 8-foot wingspan, and reached right over the top of everyone. He barely even jumped. He just placed the basketball forcefully into the hoop. The Austin crowd went absolutely insane. It's literally like watching a CGI special effect happen in real life.
The Spurs have now won 7 straight games. They beat a loaded Suns team by 27 points. They emptied their bench with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
They are not an up-and-coming team anymore. That entire narrative needs to be buried. They are actively extinguishing title contenders right now. They held the Phoenix Suns to 94 points. In the year 2026, holding a team with that much offensive firepower under 100 points is a defensive masterclass.
It really feels like the league is splitting into 2 distinct tiers, doesn't it? You have these elite, hyper-focused teams like Detroit and San Antonio just hitting another gear entirely.
It is a 2-speed league right now.
Yeah.
You have the true elite contenders, and then you have, well, whatever it is we saw happen in Sacramento last night.
Which brings us perfectly into segment 3. Because if San Antonio is the absolute peak of the mountain right now, Sacramento is the deepest valley.
They are in the Marianas Trench.
The Sacramento Kings lost to the Orlando Magic 131-94.
A 37-point loss on their home floor.
And that makes it their 15th consecutive loss. That is a brand new franchise record for consecutive losses.
It is officially rock bottom for that organization. They are sitting at 12:45 on the season.
We have to talk about the fan video. There's a clip circulating all over social media of a Kings fan leaving the Golden One Center late in the fourth quarter. And he literally reaches into a concourse trash can, grabs a half-full box of popcorn that someone threw away, and just starts eating it while walking out the door.
It is the most perfect, depressing metaphor I have ever seen. It really is.
But I don't want to just laugh at the misfortune of a fan base here. I really want to understand the psychology behind a moment like that.
It is a complete dissociation from reality. It's the sunk cost fallacy of sports fandom perfectly captured on video. The product on the floor is absolute garbage, but you are still consuming it because, well, what else are you going to do? You are a Kings fan. You have been in this dark place before. But this popcorn video, it just screams total apathy. It screams nothing matters anymore, so why not eat trash?
Let's actually look at the product on the floor, though. You watched the coach's tape of this 37-point blowout. Was it a lack of effort, or was it a total schematic breakdown?
It was a shocking lack of professional communication. There were multiple possessions where the Magic ran a very simple split action. That's where 2 guards cross paths off a post player who was holding the ball. The Kings defenders just ran directly into each other. They literally physically collided. That tells me they aren't talking on defense. They are completely disengaged from the game plan.
That ultimately falls on the head coach, Doug Christie, doesn't it?
It has to. The coach sets the standard of effort. But it also falls heavily on the front office and the roster construction. They have absolutely no perimeter point of attack defense. Javon Carter and Desmond Bane hit 27 three-pointers combined for Orlando as a team.
27 threes. That is a franchise record for Orlando, by the way.
Right. And that is not just a team getting hot. That is practice gym shooting. There was no hand in the face on these closeouts. The Kings defenders were consistently 3 to 4 feet away from the shooter when the ball is released.
And the Magic bench scored 53 points alone.
Yeah.
When Javon Carter is lighting you up from deep like that, you know it is going to be a long, painful night.
Exactly.
So is Doug Christie operating as the ultimate tank commander right now? Is this intentional? Because Kings fans are fiercely debating online whether he should be fired immediately or if he's doing exactly what the front office secretly wants him to do.
Look, I do not think any professional team loses by 37 points intentionally. If you are trying to tank, you lose by 8 points. You play hard, you keep the game relatively close to appease the fans, and then you pull your best starters in the last 4 minutes to ensure you get the loss for draft lottery position. This was a mutiny of effort. This was players quitting on the floor. And when the fans are literally eating out of the trash and the team is playing like trash, you really have to wonder if the front office is going to step in and clean house before Monday.
It is a grim situation in Northern California. But before we wrap up the show on such a sour note, we have to do a quick hit on Jaylen Brown's historic night. The Celtics beat the Warriors 121-110.
And this was another game where a massive, insurmountable lead almost completely evaporated. The Celtics were up by 34 points at one point.
34 points. And the Warriors somehow made it a competitive game down the stretch.
They cut the lead down significantly in the fourth quarter. Steve Kerr instituted a desperate full-court press using his bench guys, and the Celtics sort of just forgot how to play professional basketball for about 6 minutes. They were turning it over in the backcourt left and right, but they managed to hold on.
But the real headline from that game is Jaylen Brown.
A massive triple-double, 15-plus points, 13-plus rebounds, in a 20-point triple-double effort.
That honestly sounds like a highly specific baseball stat.
It is very specific. But here is the historical context that makes it matter. He is the first Boston Celtic player to hit those exact statistical marks in a single game since Larry Bird.
Whenever your name is in a sentence with Larry Bird in Boston, you are definitely doing something right.
Absolutely. Brown has really evolved his playmaking this season. We talk about Jason Tatum carrying the load a lot, but Brown's ability to crash the defensive glass and immediately facilitate in transition was the ultimate safety valve when the Warriors were making that crazy, chaotic run in the fourth quarter.
So, bringing it all together, what does this massive slate of games mean for the listener? We have the Pistons looking like absolute world beaters. The Spurs are the scariest team in the West. The Clippers have forged a brand new identity. And the Kings are, well, eating trash popcorn.
It means the hierarchy of the league is finally settling. Post-All-Star break is traditionally when the real contenders show up and start messing around. Detroit and San Antonio are loudly showing us they are for real. The Clippers are showing incredible resilience after a massive roster shakeup. And the bottom feeders, well, they are diving aggressively for the bottom of the standings.
The Kings are diving for popcorn in the trash. But in Detroit and San Antonio, they are absolutely feasting.
That is perfectly put.
We'll see you all back here on Monday for the next deep dive. And do not forget, the Battle of LA is tomorrow night on the Friday slate. Lakers versus Clippers. We will be watching very closely to see if Benedict Mathurin can replicate this superstar performance against LeBron James.
Oh, I cannot wait for that matchup.
Let's bounce.